to be a great Victor. Hello everybody, my name is Victor. This is the first episode of Paranormal Discussion, where we get people from Manitoba to talk to us about their paranormal experience and share it with the other people so they can step forward and help us understand what's going on in the paranormal world, so we get some advice. We're going to be looking at other situations. We're going to get mediums, and we're going to get people from the indigenous side, because they really believe in the spirit world more than anybody. And tonight, on my first show, my co-host is not here tonight because she is sick. But on my first show, my good friend Ryan, he and me we met through the spirit world, and we've been friends ever since, and we help each other out when we have little difficulties. And this is why I think he's the first one that I should put on my show. And he is here today. Hi Ryan, how are you today?
Hi, nice to meet you.
We actually smudged before we started, and we felt great. And right now I'm getting so many electricity vibes from the spirit world because he's here, because they know him as much as they know me. So he's an indigenous. What kind of indigenous person are you?
Well, my background is in Innu Cree, from York Factory First Nation, as that's where our family originated from, part of the family.
And you know a little bit about medicine?
A little bit.
And you know how the spirit world works through the
Yeah.
native spirits? Can you help us understand some of it at least?
In terms of, what are you looking at? In terms of how the spirit world, how we see the
How
spirit
the
world?
native rely on the spirit world as an ongoing event. Because I know sometimes when they went on hunting parties, they prayed for the spirit and the animal spirit. And I know when they wanted the crops to grow, they prayed for the rain spirit and the sun spirit. And when they wanted good health, they prayed for the healthy crops to give them healthy people. I've looked into a lot of stuff for the spirit world, because my dad is a native, and he's from Mohawk. I don't know how Mohawk and Cree get along, but at one point they did, I think, and then they, like anything else, turn on each other because of the white man, caused problems and stuff. But I know the spirit world is very important to the indigenous people, and it still is to this day. The elders, sorry, I didn't mean to call older, the elders, they focus on the spirit world to teach the young kids how to understand what's going on. Can you explain more about that?
I can explain a little bit about it. About a couple of things that we were talking about was, one thing, when we look at the spirit world, we see it as the other world, where relatives and other beings can come to visit. When we come to Earth, it would come through spirit. So we believe, a lot of our people believe in the Star Nation. So we're the Star Nation, so we come from the stars, and when we come here, you come here in spirit. We travel here, and we come in the physical form to live as a human being. And so we still have a connection to that spirit world. So that spirit world is that other world, that unseen world, that world that we sometimes produces fear for people because they don't understand it, or things are going on around them. When you spoke about the spirit of things, when we go and we do different things, we always offer gratitude for that spirit, because it's if we're medicine picking, or we're doing some of those other practices where we're reminding ourselves to give before we receive. So it's a way of being humble within the world, right, and living in balance with everything instead of just taking. And so that's how our relationship with the spirits are. The spirits in everything. Everything has a spirit. Even this wood has spirit. The rocks, the water. Everywhere you go, there's spirits all around us. And then there's the ones that we talk about the ancestors and the spirit world, where people go when they leave here. So the belief is when we finish our time here, whatever time that's going to be, it's not up to us, it's up to Creator. And when we're called home, we go back home through that, it's called the going home star. So the Pleiades, you know the Pleiades?
No.
The Pleiades are the seven sisters. So when the stars in the sky are the seven sisters, but if you look at it, in our belief, what it forms as a star blanket. And so when we go home, we go through that hole. Then we return to the spirit world, so we return to spirit. So we're no longer in the physical, but we're a spiritual being. We believe that within all of us, within you, there's and everybody else, and we're just two-legged as human beings. That the concept of anything else was kind of foreign, because if you look at all the indigenous languages, if you look at the Anishinaabe, if you look at Innu, it means the people, because that's what we're everyone was. Even if you
Makes
look
sense.
at Ethnosani and Drupi Mohawk, right? There's the three flags. And there's lots of different nations, lots of different beliefs, and it all comes from the spirits that you work with and the places you work in. From the land, from those things around you, from Mother Earth, from the Sky Nation. And when we come here as a little being, as a little blue light, is the way I've heard it described by the elders. When we come here as a little blue light, that's what's inside of all of us, this little blue light, which is our spirit, our essence of who that's what we are, even though we're in this physical realm. And so our spirit comes here, and it comes and chooses where it's going to go, and it goes into that body and becomes that vehicle. And so what ends up happening in that lifetime, spiritually speaking, is helpers come, because we acknowledge ourselves as pitiful. When we come into this world, we're human beings, we're frail compared to some other things, so we come with helpers. So the animals have agreed to come with us in spirit form and they become our helpers, right? So that's where the whole idea of helpers and spirit guides, which isn't connected necessarily, but is a different way of seeing it, but has been talked about within indigenous culture of being like, totem animals, things like that isn't the indigenous way of seeing it. It was more about kinship and family and who you're related to, right? So
Yeah.
if you have a spirit helper that you come with, and then you have somebody else that has that same spirit helper, or a spirit helper that's similar to that, like in terms of a bear. So for example, if two people are a bear, they consider it a family. So you're kin. So when you're kin, you're family. So it's a spirit family, which is a little different than when we look at the Western way of family and kinship and things like
Yeah.
that. So that's what it's rooted in. And so you talked about hunting and that, and going out anywhere. And the reason why is it's communication, right? Because we are spiritual beings, so we're in constant communication with our the vibrations and everything around us, right? So when we go through and go to places, those we talk about some of those spirits that will come and watch, right? So from the forest, those spirits will come, and even if they're old ones that don't understand our language, the English language, and they speak the traditional languages of their people, they watch us, right? So it takes them a little bit longer to understand what we're about. And so they watch us. They watch us in those places to see what we're doing, just like when we go to ceremony, when we're taught that someone's always watching, whether we could say creator, great mystery, great spirit, God, it's all those things we don't know. We have no idea what that being is, that essence of everything. There's no possible way of understanding it spiritually speaking. And so when we go into those places, they watch us to see what we're like. They want to know about us because they're like our grandparents. So when we talk about grandparents, grandfather, grandmother, there's a lot of different ways of seeing that. So when we look at just like a stone, we look at it as a grandmother or a grandfather. And so that contains that spirit inside there, and we call them grandmother or grandfather because they're old, they're way older than us in society stuff. And so those ones come and they watch us at ceremonies, and they have certain ways of seeing what we're all about to understand who we are as human beings. That's the same thing as when we go out into the world and we come into places, come into different places. There could be spirit energy, there could be spirits that have traveled here, or can sometimes get stuck, depending on what their journey in life has been. And so it's kind of like that energy is in that place, you know what I mean? When you go to places, sometimes you can travel back in time, so to speak, because it's got this old energy, because there's still people, like spirits, that have stayed in those areas, and they have almost like a little community there.
Yeah. I get that vibe when I go into places. I know something wants to talk to me, and you try to talk to them, but it's kind of hard because you can't understand what they're saying. and I use different equipment. Sometimes they come across, but most of the time they just make my EVP light up so I know they're there.
Yeah.
And I give all the spirits so much respect that sometimes I give more respect to the spirits than the human people. And they deserve it though. They're on a mission, and we don't know what their mission is, and I'm trying to help their mission. But I have a question to ask you. I've been getting a lot of native drinks. For a white man, that's kind of weird, or different, isn't it? Because usually a white man don't get native dreams.
Well, it depends on your ancestry, right? Like sometimes in our dreams, those ancestors, those little beings, they try and reach out to us to remind us of who we are, you know, and they try and remind us of things that we're supposed to be doing in this lifetime and connect us to that, right? It's not, I mean, it's all depends on your dreams.
Yeah, 'cause mine was once when I was driving this car with this girl. She had no tires and no rims.
Yeah.
And she was driving up, and this one guy said, "You got no tires on your car."
Yeah.
And she stuck her hand out. He hit her with a board, bone stick out. She just stood there like nothing. And I got out of the car, and all of a sudden, all these native people were around me, put their hand on my shoulder, and smiled. And I was not scared. I didn't run away. I looked around, thought, "This is weird." But I was told by some people that the native spirits accepted me, and that's how they're showing it. Does that make sense, or is that another reason?
That could make sense. Like it depends, right? I mean, there's lots of messages in anything. Anything has multiple messages. But sometimes it's a reminder, like maybe there's some work that you'll do to help people. You know, like some people that are being, like we have a lot of things going on in communities, especially with people going missing and things like that. And sometimes they give us messages to help, right? And they, you know, for people to carry certain gifts. It wasn't ever seen as indigenous and non-indigenous. That's been kind of a colonial way of seeing it. We are human beings. We're all human beings. And so spirit doesn't know any different.
Yeah.
It doesn't know, but in our conversations when we've talked about your history too. We've talked about your family and in terms of your connection to the culture. So that's carried in you, right? So that's that blood memory, and you're recognized through spiritual energy, right?
I'm happy for that.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of times that I had a dream, and this indigenous woman came up, and she said, "You're going on a long trip." 2 weeks later, my boss sent me 12 hours away from Winnipeg. And I'm like, this is weird. And I thought the trip was like somewhere else, but it was, and she even pointed north. And I couldn't, and then when I got up there, it clicked in my head, this is what I was supposed to be for a while.
Yeah.
And I stayed up there for 2.5 years.
Wow, right?
Yeah, because I get those dreams, and sometimes they don't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, a week or a month later, it happens.
Yeah.
And then it makes sense. Like,
when we talk about those type of dreams as visions, so when we have visions, they bring us visions. So in our dreams, our ancestors or other spirits will visit us, and they'll give us a way of seeing the world to help us, guide us to where we're supposed to be and where we're supposed to be doing that work that we've come here to do. Because as human beings, we don't know, right? As human, we've forgotten everything.
we
That's the
ignore
one
a lot
thing
of things too.
Yeah, well, we forget everything as we come here. That's one of our agreements. Whereas the animals haven't forgotten, and anything else hasn't forgotten what they are. But we forget who we are, and that's part of our learning how to be a human being and how to be within this earth. And so when we have those visions, it reminds us some of those places to where to go. Like we'll get visions at different times. Like different people get visions.
Yeah.
And there's different ways of seeing those visions, and it's all depends on your culture and your background and where you come from. And how you interpret it, but eventually they always make sense. Some take longer than others. Some will take years before you understand what they mean, right? And
That's true.
That's our mental side of things, is where we want to try and figure it out. You know what I mean? We want to solve it, because that's where we are. We're in our head. When we talk about things, we talk about it from the heart space, and that's kind of why we smudged before we started, was to get us into that spiritual space, to have those conversations, right? To be connected to that.
But I never forgot any of my dreams from the indigenous side, because for some reason,
it's important.
When I think about something, they pop in once in a while, just like a reminder thing. Like the first time when I came to Winnipeg, I had a job out in BC waiting for me.
Yeah.
The night before, 2 nights before I got on the bus, I had a dream that I was on a horse, with a dog beside me, taking 3 days to get, and then you know how long that vision took for me to remember? It took me a year. I was laying in bed one day, and I'm thinking about all the trip up here, and I realized the bus had a dog on the side of the bus, and it took me 3 days by bus to get here. And I laid in bed, goes, they knew I was coming here before I knew.
Yeah.
And they were showing me, but I was looking at the direction they give me, was the direction that I couldn't understand yet.
Yeah.
Then when I got here, I said, how much of an idiot could I be not understanding that?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm starting to learn a little bit more. Every time I do, I try to talk to you about it and some other friends.
Yeah.
And then they all put pieces together for me. And I feel good when I get a dream about the native people. And I don't mean to defend anybody by saying native, because I'm so used to saying native when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I enjoy my dreams with the indigenous people coming to me, showing me things that I've never seen before that I love seeing. And it's just something that people don't understand, I don't think.
No, it's tricky, right, for people that we've come into this place where now we're more open to it, right? You see a lot more stuff out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot more openness to that stuff. I mean, if you go back when we were younger, you know, I don't know how, like, I mean.
Let's not get that far back.
Let's not date ourselves, but, you know, like going back to that time, right? We didn't talk about these things.
No, because people call you crazy, psycho.
Yeah.
And that explained why my dad was very superstitious.
Yeah.
Because he would never leave the house on Friday the 13th. He'd call him sick.
Yeah.
And then he would never walk on the same side of the road with a black cat or a ladder.
Yeah.
And this guy is like 6'2", big guy. Not afraid much, but this was scared him, and I couldn't understand him when I was younger.
Yeah.
But now I do, because he saw what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And then before that, my grandfather had it, but I thought he had, it was a gimmick, because he used to do playing cards as tarot cards.
Yeah.
And people would come down and get readings of
Yeah.
that. And then he would do tea leaves, and he tried to teach me, but I'm a young person, 13. You know, all you think it was a card trick. And then before he passed on, all he said to me was, you'll have $1 million. And the first thing I thought that young was money.
Yeah.
When I got older, it was not money, it was the spirit world.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of so happy that I picked that path, because it's been great for me, and I've been helping on a lot of people.
That's awesome.
And I want to continue helping people out throughout the years before I move on.
Yeah, before we travel on.
Before we go to the next, I call it the next dimension.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows what's on the other side. Nobody can guess, nobody can fathom, it just happens.
Yeah.
And all these TV shows that they show that people die, come back and tell everybody you got a white light. There's no white light. People are just crazy. They just want to believe what they see on TV. And I'm trying to explain to these people that the afterlife is a good thing if you suffer during the real life, because you don't have no more pain. But you can still see your loved ones, but you can't communicate with them. And that's what I keep telling people: when somebody dies, don't be sad, be happy, because they're in a better situation and they're always with you. People don't like me saying that because they think I'm nuts, but it's the truth. Like, I see my dad when I'm stressed out in my dreams, and he'll hold my hand, and when I wake up in the morning, I feel better.
Yeah.
And people think that's nuts, but hey, when you're stressed out and you got nobody to hug you, and your dad's there in your dream, I'll take that over anything, any day of the week. Yeah, we and Dad wasn't that close, but we were close enough to enjoy our company. And that was the hard part when he passed on.
Well, they're always with us, eh?
Yeah.
The spirits are always with us, right? When we talk about spirits that have passed on, we use words to let them know that they've passed on, right? Because we don't want to call them back to help us. You know what I mean? They've done their time, and so that's one of the beliefs, is that we respectfully say that they've gone on, right? And the only way I know to say it is in Ojibwe, and it's Ibun. So if somebody's gone on, it's so and so Ibun, right? So they've gone on to the spirit world. But when we reference them that way, we're not like calling them back
Yeah.
to come and help us and to sit with us, right? Because they've done their time. That's where I was talking to one man one time, and he said about like any kind of teachings and that. He says he doesn't want credit for any of it because then when you're referencing him, you're gonna be calling them back
Yeah.
all the time. And so he was laughing with that one. But you know, it's a beautiful journey to be on in terms of the guiding people and the spirits with the spirits, to make those connections. But it wasn't things we were taught, right? And it wasn't
Yeah.
things that we were shown. And there's so much stuff out there nowadays. And then there's also that whole fear side of things, right? Where we get into these fear states or these things and these things that we don't understand, and you know, we don't understand how that works or how that is because we're in our human construct, right, as spiritual beings, but we don't understand those things anymore. Like when we go into spirit, we understand it.
Yeah.
But when we're here, we sometimes have a hard time, and people have a hard time understanding those things. And it's like when we have kids in schools, um, you know, like right away when we start talking about hearing voices, and well, we need to slow down. Like, what does that mean? What does it mean you're hearing voices? Like, is this something that somebody's trying to talk to you? Is it all the time? Like, what is the level of it, right? Because we often in the Western way, in the medical model, we go to like something's wrong, right?
Yeah.
And I've heard it said from people in the shamanic community, medicine people, they say that when they go to an institution, like a place where people have you know, mental difficulties, they say they go in there and they're unawakened shaman often, right? That people have these gifts and they don't know how to use them because nobody was there to teach them.
And that's sad though.
Yeah, and so that's part of it, right? As part of our journey is to work through those things and to teach about those things. And you know, there's sometimes though, like when you come into certain spaces and areas and stuff like that, it's like, or you look at certain things, it's like, nope, I'm not going there. That's okay. That's for the next person, you know. Like
Yeah.
I'm not. It's not for me.
Not your time yet.
No, well, not to deal with those types of things. And it's just some of those other spirits. There's spirits, all sorts of spirits, right? Everything is infinite, but when we think about those spirits, those ones that everyone worries about, right? Like we always worry when we hear things and stuff like that. Sometimes it's just your ancestors coming to communicate, coming to hang out for a little bit, or you smell things, right?
Yeah.
Like you'll smell like a cigar smell in the house or something that
Or-
your grandfather smoked, right?
Or a rocking chair moving.
Yeah, and different things like that,
Yeah.
right? Those ones are just often they're visitors, or sometimes, you know, they were so attached to this place and they never left, right? So then sometimes we have to do that helping work for them to move on in some ways, right? To kind of complete that energy cycle.
Yeah, that's true. And sometimes they just come and visit and make sure you're okay too.
Yep.
They just pop in and say, and they you can't see them, but they think that you can see them, and they say, hey, and they move on, somebody else. And it's this kind of gift you get, it's hard to adjust to it, and then once you adjust to it, it's easy to talk to the other side of the spirit world because you know it, you know how to adjust to their thinking and how to ask them questions, and once they get used to you, they'll answer back in a friendlier way.
Yeah, it always comes. For us, we always use tobacco, sima.
I have some over here.
We put down tobacco when we ask those questions and we have those conversations. We're just giving thanks.
Yep.
Going into a place and giving thanks and stuff like that. That's that relationship, right? And so.
I always thank them after I'm done visiting
Yeah.
a house. I always tell them thanks for all the help they give us.
Yeah.
Hopefully